How does my head look today, Elbow? Does it look fat? Does it look odd, my head? That's what I mean? All this stuff. It's like chilling. I'm like a bit of a crazy scientist. I'm not combing my hair back out all day, every day. That's a ball ache. Yeah, today 5k felt pretty damn tiring. I think I started a bit faster, that's why, and I started to lag off toward the end and well get pretty tired, fatigued quite a bit. I'm not saying like I'm getting unfitter or I'm not losing weight. It's probably more, I don't know what it is exactly. Maybe it's just that I exerted myself, or maybe it's just that the amount of running I've been doing is catching up with me. I'm cutting calories still, and perhaps that's catching up with me. My body's like, okay, you've done it for a bit, give me more food. I don't know. It's a minute now, so today I want to talk about, I'm trying to stick to one topic. There are loads of tidbits I could talk about, but let's just stick to one, and that'll be skepticism. So the question would be, how can you be certain about something? And I can say, just so I don't get too deep, I can say I am certain I'm recording on a phone, just because these are like definite things. This is more metaphysical, and I don't want to go into like fucking metaphysics and talk about how can I be certain the sky is blue. But I'm talking more about like, how can you be certain about X, Y, and Z, like philosophy or theory, you know? I was speaking to Elliot last night, and saying this other guy called Elliot was certain that objectivism is essentially true. And objectivism is a pretty nice philosophy. It's pretty damn decent. It is oriented around reason. That's what the entire philosophy is based around. It's very similar to Stoicism in a lot of respects. So how can you just say that objectivism is definitely true, and like idealism or existentialism, they're false, or they're not as true as objectivism? And I guess if they're not as true, then they've got to be false by default, right? As an overall philosophy. So you can say like science, like how can you be certain that X, Y, and Z is correct just because science backed it? And what does that even mean, science backs it? Does that mean there's a council of people who deign something to be true or not? They assert something is true or not? Is there a council that comes together and say, ah yes, okay, this theory is universally, objectively true, and it will be forever and has always been true? No, there's not a council like that. There's just different groups of scientists or people, some of them maybe not even scientists, but they just say, based on X, Y, and Z, we claim this to be true, and it might get cross-referenced. Another board of scientists might check it and say, okay, yes, it's true. But then does that make it impossible for new science to come along and refute that piece of science? And then why cannot that not happen ad infinitum, you know? That doesn't just have to happen once. It can happen again and again. It can be eternally recur, you know? Science can just get refuted and refuted. So when we have a load of science about like the carnivore diet, then you have a book like How Not to Die, which basically advocates an evidence-based diet, which is just basically veganism. They're completely incompatible. They become, you know, one is the antithesis of the other. And how do we reconcile that diet, when, you know, how do we create synthesis from that when both are scientifically proven, but they're complete opposites, you know? And that's why I would say one good thing about objectivism is it does tell you to use reason, use your brain. But I think if this Elliot guy was to meet Ayn Rand, and, well, everyone's got their faults, but let's say Ayn Rand shared a lot of skepticism like I do, had a lot of skepticism like I do, and Elliot says to her, oh, this is completely true, right? This is the philosophy, it's completely right. Well, if Ayn Rand was, if I'd say a bit more, I don't know, it seems, let's say she's this wise, and I am coining wise as like being skeptical. If she was a bit wiser, I hope she'd say, well, Elliot, this is my idea. I believe it's very, very beneficial to live your life this way, but I'm not saying it's absolute universal truth. Elliot might then go, oh shit, okay, I've been a bit naive, hopefully, you know, given he isn't really arrogant. So yeah, that's skepticism. You've just got to question everything, and you don't have to question everything, like, is the sky blue? Does my shit smell? Or does it smell of roses? But you have to question things that could affect your belief system and the way you live your life. So science, you know, you can go from there. I won't continue this string of logic, this stream of consciousness. Quick other thing, kind of interlinked, kind of linked, is why isn't everyone happy when there's so much self-help out there? And I guess I can talk a bit about how a lot of self-help is like accidentally dishonest, but I'm not saying all of it is. Probably some of it is genuinely dishonest and is a money-making scheme. I think a lot of the decent chunk is, but proportionally, I think a lot of people are strong, you know, positively doing it. They're good-hearted. They're doing it from a positive standpoint, altruistic standpoint. And I just think that they are dishonest in a sense that they believe that what they've written can work for basically everybody, and if you just follow what they say, it can bring you happiness because it worked for them, right? And they probably read a load of stuff and collated a load of arguments and evidence and bits of philosophy, and maybe read a lot of the Stoics and other philosophers, and they've distilled it all down into this compendium of self-help hacks, and they've just sold it to you for $9.99 on Amazon, and you've got Prime delivery, and you've got it the next day, and you read through it all, and you read it again and again, and you've learned it off by heart, but still you're depressed, or still you're struggling with X, Y, and Z, and you're not perfect. Why? And I believe that's simply because we humans we're fucking complex. You can't just read something and have it shift how your brain functions. Hello, spider. You gotta, you know, we have, that's one of those jumping spider things. We have one of those, we have habits, you know? We have habits, and they are like fucking, what do you call it, branded almost, embedded into our brain. I'm not saying that's definitely true, but, you know, I think there's probably a lot of science on habits, but yeah, I think generally we can't just flick like that perfectly. Oh, doggo. I think we have habits that we need to slowly dissolve and replace, and even if you have a book on habits like Atomic Habits, you can follow that and that'll probably do you well, but then you need to know what habits you really want to start implementing, ones you really want to start taking out of your life. And you've got all stuff like environment and how that affects you and how that affects your willpower, motivation. Maybe you're fucking like addicted to short bouts of dopamine, and you need a dopamine detox, and then you get a book on dopamine detox, and it maybe if you really, you know, slowly read through these books and you read through them and slowly implemented the hacks, the tips they were giving you, and you're doing them in the right order. So like maybe first you need to start cutting back on your dopamine, and maybe simultaneously replacing those bits of time wastage with some bits of productivity, and you need to find something productive which is meaningful to you. So it's a fucking complex thing. So, and then you've got to balance life in general. Maybe you've got a job, other responsibilities, you know what I mean, different anxieties, you've got things you haven't reconciled from your past. It's very fucking complicated. And that's potentially why philosophy maybe is generally more helpful if you've got the patience and you've got the patience and the understanding, the intellect. But then what is that? What is intellect? What you have to do is just research words and terms you don't understand and stuff, and keep doing that until you understand what the original philosophy text is saying. So you just need to have the patience, I guess, and the point I'm trying to make is that you take the philosophy text and then it's quite abstract, but then through hopefully some self-understanding you'd be able to apply it to your life. And I'm not saying philosophy is very practical, but I think you can, I think reading it slowly and studying it and actually living it, you can, or trying to apply it, maybe it is better than self-help stuff in terms of improving yourself. Maybe you do come to a greater sense of self-understanding than if you were to read some self-help. I'm going to leave that thought there because I don't really want to spend a few minutes thinking about it and talking shit about it, because maybe some self-help is better at being practical, maybe philosophy is better long term and it leads to a richer life. I don't know. Another thing is people who are backseat drivers. I sent an email to myself yesterday. It's like a form of note-taking. People who, so my philosophy guy person I know, he just, I don't know, seems to be a bit dishonest in terms of, not dishonest, but seems to preach but not live his philosophy. And I just think like he, Nietzsche for example, because he's Nietzsche and he's all about Nietzsche. If you saw him and had a conversation with him, I mean, even I look at like how much selfies he posts on social media, and gym selfies and selfies of young girls. He's young girls, yeah. He's sleeping with, and just completely validating them on social media, and it's just like, is there any self-awareness there? Like, do they just study? Philosophy, I don't believe philosophy is just meant to be studied, understood. Yeah, that's what it means, and then just like ignored. Philosophy's meant to be fucking like life affirming, life improving your life. It's like the self-help essentially. It's not just it's not just like read, understand, and then put aside. It's like read, understand, and then try to apply it. And I think, I'd have thought that you do start applying it naturally. Maybe I'm just a bit more wired this way. I don't know, but I thought that you'd start feeling like you want to start improving your life when you're reading about X, Y, and Z. And I don't know. Yeah, that's today's vlog. I do want to get a haircut in the next few days. I want to get these trimmed. Like, if you look Ivar the Boneless on like season 6 or whatever it is, he's definitely like in season 6 of Vikings, like shaved, and it looks pretty dope. Elbow says I've got a neck beard, and I was going to shave it anyway and keep my moustache, but I need a trimmer, so that'll probably happen in the next week or so. Not really bothered about this, but this is just, look at that shit. This is just genuinely more frustrating, irritating. Today, woke up at 5, started doing rails for like nearly 3 hours, from like 5:30 till 8:30. Then I ate a bit, and then I was out for like 9 to do my jog, and now it's just before 10. So yeah, I left just after 9. So yeah, it's been a pretty good day. I've been up for 5 hours, a few hours of Ruby on Rails. I'm going to do some more of that. Actually quite enjoying it. Yesterday I got a phone call, or I phoned a guy, I had a phone call with this guy about this job wherein I'm getting 3.3% of the business profits for managing the ads and the web and doing all the website stuff. I'm not complaining because I don't expect anything from it, and it sounds like it's only a little bit of maintenance. See how it goes. It's something more to do. Yeah, want to start working on this web application with Nico today, and that is about it. I have no other plans for the afternoon. A lot of the days are merging into one, so I need to get back on it with my journaling. Yeah.